This podcast is brought to you by Legend Comics and Coffee in Omaha, Nebraska, located in scenic downtown Benson. They got a new location. It's absolutely gorgeous. Check it out. And by listeners like you. Go to Patreon/Two-Headed Nerd. Become a patron. Support this show.
Our story this week picks up where we left off last week.
Broadcasting from the Ziggurat in Omaha, in caverns deep below the metro area, it is our pleasure to welcome you to episode 744 of the Two-Headed Nerd Comic Book Podcast. I am your head number one, and my name is Matt Baum.
That must make me, the Internet's Joe Patrick, your head number two for this evening. It's time for a post-Memorial Day new comic show where we'll review 8 new comics from the last 2 New Comic Wednesdays. After that, we'll set you up with our must-read new comic picks for next week.
And finally, you're going to get a sampling of our Patreon Extra, where the Ludicrous Speed Round returns with quick reviews of all of the Marvel Blood Hunt miniseries first issues, and there's plenty of them. So put on your floaties, nerds, because summer is here, and there is no better place to ruin your comics than in the pool. Hope you brought your sunscreen, because it's review time in the Ziggurat.
As always, our reviews begin with 4 comics from last week, and then we'll pile on 4 from this week. Each one will be judged with our 3-point rating scale of buy it, strong skim it, low skim it, etc. Also, there's a leave it, which could get you kicked out of your local public pool faster than boisterous play. Matt, I'm not going to tell you again, no rating. Now slow down and let's review some comics.
Slip and break your ass out here.
New comics for the week of Wednesday, May 22nd.
We begin with my pick of the week for last week, Blood Squad 7, number 1 from Image. It's written by Joe Casey, cover and art by Paul Fry, colors by Francesco Segala and Gloria Martinelli, with letters by Russ Wooten. It is 28 pages for $3.99. Here's your solicit. Series premiere! Thank you, Image.
Thanks, Image.
30 years ago, Blood Squad 7 was America's most popular superhero team. Its members were seen on television, on magazine covers, scoring million-dollar endorsement deals. They were celebrities, and they were everywhere. But that was then. This is now. And so a new generation of modern-day heroes takes up the mantle, or perhaps the poison chalice, fulfilling a promise made decades ago to be the heroes that a fractured America needs. While deconstructions of superhero nostalgia typically center around the classic characters of the Silver Age, Blood Squad 7 delves deep into 90s comic book themes with this imagining of what would happen if heroes from that decade returned to action after a 30-year absence. Do you know how hard...
Very specific but legally prohibited heroes from that era.
It's so hard to write something like this without saying the word Youngblood.
Youngblood, yeah.
They just can't say it.
We'll talk about... Joe Casey goes in depth in the afterword.
He
we'll
does.
talk about that.
And it's good. It is good. This is spinning out of Joe Casey's Dutch as well. Dutch was
I did not know that.
Yeah.
When this was because the solicit doesn't mention Dutch at all.
No, he's in the book, though. And it's like Dutch
Is he? I don't think he is in the book.
They talk about him. He's not on the team anymore.
They mention him, yeah.
He
but
was
Dutch is not
on
in this comic.
This team back in the day.
He was a member of Blood Squad 7 back in the day.
The Youngblood or Blood Squad.
Young Blood Squad 7. Yeah. I got
it. Here, they're telling a very modern tale. The squad is operating in Ukraine, taking out Russian soldiers. A lot of Aaron Sorkin-style walk and talk here with the government bureaucrats behind the scenes. But it's one of those things that Casey can do really well, and it did not bother me at all. When handled poorly, that can be a real bore.
I thought it was kind of boring.
Really? It was kind of, you thought it was kind of boring? I liked how snappy the dialogue was.
The thing about Aaron Sorkin walk and talk political banter is that the people are moving.
Sure.
And this is just static images of people talking. Well, whatever.
So like we were saying, Casey cites this book as the continuity filler for Youngblood, now that Image doesn't own that IP anymore. And he wants to fill this huge hole left by Youngblood, but in a very modern sense, with these new characters, next generation Youngblood. And he wrote this impassioned thing in the back all about it. And look, it's easy to look back, make fun of Youngblood. But back in the day, when Image Comics started, Youngblood literally guest starred in everybody's book. And when you pull that IP
sure.
out,
I mean, but they all kind of did that. But yes, the Youngblood especially was all over the place.
All over the place. And when you pull that chunk of continuity out and just go, it never existed, you fundamentally break that stupid universe.
All right. So now I want to slow down and talk about that real quick, because you, to a small extent, but Casey to a large extent, is acting like Youngblood is such an integral that Image Comics continuity is such an important part of the stories that the founders of Image Comics have been telling over the past 30 years, and that something huge is missing. And really, that's not the case.
I don't think that's what he's doing.
I think it is. I think that in his afterword, he specifically states.
I disagree. I think for the sake
they excised Youngblood.
Yeah, but I think for the sake of this experiment, for what they're doing, the conjoined Image universe, Youngblood would have been this big. He's not saying like these comics were so important, people.
No. No. I understand. But what he is saying is that the Image Comics founders actually intended to build a DC or Marvel type shared universe.
That was the plan.
I don't think that that's the case, because they would have done it without Youngblood.
I think that was the plan, big time, because they were all connected.
I think that if they wanted it, they could have done it without Youngblood.
I think they just did a shitty job of it because they weren't writers.
I think they realized they all wanted to do their own thing, and that's what we got.
By the time Alan Moore showed up and Joe Casey showed up for Wildcats and stuff, they were just like, let's just do this, whatever.
I mean, this is all academic. Right. We can debate it all day long, and nobody knows but the founders what they intended.
It doesn't hurt the book at all, but for the sake of Joe Casey's experiment here, where this is what if Youngblood was still around and they successfully connected this universe, I think he did a great job. What did you think of the art here? I liked Paul Fry. I think you're right. There's a lot of bureaucratic office drawing and stuff like that.
I mean, I mean, it's well drawn. I think that the art is decent. It's got a lot of Tony Harris's DNA in it. I think.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
There are definitely some images that are like, oh, this could have been a scene from like Ex Machina, late stage Tony Harris.
I totally agree with that. I'll give you that.
And
his line work, definitely.
Yeah. I thought the art was fine. I thought the art was decent. I think the character designs, while they are distinct, I think the fact that they all are like very modern style and also similarly colored made them kind of look samey, even though the silhouettes are different. Does that make sense?
I suppose. I kind of got this like updated 90s vibe.
I get it. And I agree. It's just that I think that maybe if they had maybe gone a little bit bolder with the colors, like I get that what they're doing, they're government operatives,
right?
Whatever. But like if Blood Squad 7 looked like Youngblood, like with like bright reds and blues and guys with a head on fire, and like that would have been visually distinct. And as it is, it kind of all blended together.
See, and I think that would have also taken away from what they're doing with this book a little bit, where these guys are a secret. They are not Youngblood anymore.
I understand. I'm just talking about
but I don't disagree with what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Purely from a visual point of view, that's kind of where my mind went.
In the back matter, Casey calls out titles like Watchmen, Justice League Europe, The Authority, and The Ultimates, all of which redefine superhero storytelling, and he wants to use this series to explore the forgotten Image superhero continuity that Youngblood sort of tried to create. So far, the creative team is off to a great start in my mind. Whether this is 90s nostalgia or not doesn't matter when the storytelling is this good. I'm giving this a buy it. I really liked it, and I've really been enjoying his Dutch as well. I think they're going to build something here, and I kind of like, without any spoilers, I kind of like how part of this story is, okay, this person is a hero, and part of their power is they have a razor wire that comes out of their hands that they butcher people with. What does that do to a person? And we're going to talk about Wolverine and Sabretooth later on, like the differences there, but like, what would it do to a person's psyche to have blades that you murder people with that come out of your body?
I mean, you mean like in their old age, like psychologically? Or
yes,
physically?
I'm just talking like what kind of a person does that make?
Are they a
hero?
I mean, you're certainly not wrong. I think that's definitely worth investigating. I'm going to give this a skim it just because I don't think that this was elevated to Casey's usual level of like deconstruction of a topic. I think he just did the thing exactly the way he said he was going to do the thing. And there's something to be said for that, but that's not really what we come to Joe Casey for. You know what I mean?
I think there's more going on here. I think this is a first issue.
I mean, we'll see. In this first issue, though, I thought it was just like, oh, this is just kind of, and it's all, and when it doesn't really subvert expectations, then I'm left thinking, oh, well, I've seen stuff like this before in books like The Authority and later issues of Stormwatch, which, again, not necessarily Joe Casey's fault, but it is funny that he, in his afterword, he goes to great pains to, like, he can't even say the word Youngblood in the text describing the planning.
Not
of
in an image book. You can't.
It's like, he literally said, I am legally prohibited from saying the name of this book, but you know which book we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, well, look at the logo. It's written in Youngblood, style and everything.
I mean, kind of, yeah. And so I think that it succeeds as far as his mission statement. I just kind of wished there was more to it, and maybe there will be.
Fair.
The comic with what might be the most deceptively unseeming title this week goes to White Boat #1 from DSTLRY. This was my pick of the week for last week. Don't up the Spider-Gwen thing. I changed my mind.
Yeah, because it sucked.
Look, hey, I mean, it didn't suck, but
yeah, it did.
To be perfectly honest, I originally picked Spider-Gwen because it was kind of slim pickings last week, and I was like, oh, I like Stephanie Williams. I completely missed White Boat on the release list. And full disclosure, Chip Mosier, he's like, hey, what about White Boat? And I was like, oh, yeah, what about White Boat? So here we are.
All right.
It's written by Scott Snyder with art and colors by Francesco Francavilla, letters by And World Design. It's 48 pages for $8.99. Here is your solicit. New series debut from the acclaimed team behind Detective Comics and Night of the Ghoul comes a modern horror classic. White boats are the mega yachts that the super rich use to traverse the globe, floating islands where your every desire can be fulfilled, and getting invited on board one should be a dream come true. That is until the crew traps and transports you to a remote island where secret cults have existed for millennia, working on something called the Human Project.
Ew.
Does the white boat ship you to paradise or sink you into hell on Earth? Spoilers, it's hell.
Yeah.
White Boat reunites Scott Snyder, the visionary writer who redefined comic book dread with witches and introduced Batman into a terrifying cerebral era. All right. With modern noir master Francesco Francavilla.
I mean, sure.
For a white.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
For a while, anyway. Hey, look, that first year of the New 52 Batman, I'll still put it up there today. For a white-knuckle descent into Lovecraftian maritime madness. Recommended for fans of Hereditary, The Host, Jurassic Park, and The Island of Dr. Moreau. Now, when I read the solicit last week, I was like, Jurassic Park, what? And then you kind of get to a point and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's there.
You can see him working is my point.
It's there.
There is an awful lot in the solicit that's only hinted at in this issue. The Human Project, forget about it. Instead, the first half of the book is dedicated to introducing us to Lee, the series protagonist, or at least so far he's the protagonist. Lee's tragic childhood has led to his broken adulthood, and he's dragging around a lot of baggage down in the Florida Keys. Snyder does a tremendous job building up tension here, not only after the weirdness kicks in, but in the prologue as well.
Yeah. When
they had the capsizing of Lee's family's boat and everything. Once Lee gets to the titular white boat, things get super fucking weird, real fucking fast. Impossible artifacts from impossible sources are packed into an impossible space. Francavilla is at the top of his game as always. The coloring is gorgeous. His signature orange he's got that shade of orange that is in everything he's ever done.
They just need to call it Francavilla Orange.
I think it should just be called Francavilla.
It's his. You own it.
It's paired with vibrant aquamarine, pale yellow, and various shades of green. It's very nautical and also very much his.
I love the coloring on the creepy guy on the boat too. And like
he's gray the whole time. He's gray.
Do a little coloring thing with his letter bubbles. It's like this is not a normal person, and
he is not a man.
And
this man is not a man.
Perfect way to illustrate that.
Each chapter of the issue has a beautiful intro page featuring gloomy aquatic scenes that are increasingly overtaken by a horrifying sea creature. The last chapter heading is this gorgeous like woodcut thing that I suspect perhaps came from history, not from Francavilla, but still it's really good looking. White Boat number 1 is the gripping start to an intense, compelling, and gorgeously illustrated horror mystery. This gets a huge buy-in from me. I loved it.
Yeah, this kind of did the opposite of what Spectrograph did, which was like build weird on the last 3 pages, and you're like, oh my god, I got to come back and see what happened. This was like, oh, it's all right. Things are okay. Things are bad. Things are creepy. Things are wildly out of control. And you're in this for the art. Snyder is really good at these type of horror stories. It's so well designed too. The one thing I'm going to give every one of these distillery books. Yeah, I didn't pick up Somna, but even the design on that book is just gorgeous. They design these so well. This is a massive buy it. And you could tell the creators here are just having a great time. Then they feel freed perhaps from their comic book format now that they're in this big sexy magazine. It just looks great.
Yeah, for sure. And look, yes, you come for the art because it's Francavilla doing horror and it's gorgeous, but I don't want to take anything away from the writing.
Yeah, nothing. I'm not taking
It's a really compelling script, and by the time the boat got to where it was going, I was just like, what's happening? I need to know what's going on right now.
This is a great book.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Back to comic books for landlubbers, specifically Russian cops. This is Sanction, number 1 from Mad Cave, written by Paul Tobin and Ray Fox, cover by Dan Panosian, art by Antonio Fuso, colors by Emilio Lecce, maybe? Lecce? I don't know. Letters by Dave Sharp. It's 28 pages, it's $4.99, and here is your solicit. Leningrad, 1987, when a woman's corpse is discovered on New Year's Day, a hungover detective, Pavel Smirnov, hands off the case to his partner, Detective Boris Dmitrovich. Those are some wildly generic Russian names, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one guy could have been named Yakov Smirnov.
I know.
It's like... Well, you guys didn't deviate too far, did you?
But Yakov is kind of an odd name. His name is Pavel.
Pavel is
John.
John Smith, right? Yeah.
Hoping he'll close it without a fuss. Instead, Dmitrovich uncovers a connection to an old unsolved crime, dragging them both into an investigation that puts their careers and possibly their lives at risk. This is everything you expect. It's a Russian dirty cop story, complete with all the police story beats and Russian trappings. You've got bitter cold, drunk Russians, pain in the ass cop who plays by the rules and can't get ahead in a crooked police force, and a case that no one wants involving a dead hooker. Or is she a dead hooker? The story slowly kind of unfolds, and what looks like an open and shut case, of course, turns out to be much more, or it's a cop blowing a case out of proportion to get noticed as far as his superiors are concerned. Like, they're really setting up that Russia is crooked as hell.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it's not just the cops. There's like a scene where he goes to the coffee shop, and the guy, and he's like, every day I come in here, you short me my change. You do that. He's like, every day I'm a loyal customer. And the guy's like, oh, don't take it so seriously. And
Yeah.
I think Antonio Fuso is a perfect artist for this kind of police mystery. He's got kind of a simple, blocky style. It's sort of hard-lined, but he can convey a ton of humanity with his work. I first remember him, I want to say it was that G.I. Joe series.
G.I. Joe Cobra.
Yeah. Man. I think a lot of G.I. Joe fans weren't into because it wasn't a superhero, but that story was specifically more real world, not a superhero G.I. Joe story.
It was espionage and intrigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's really good with his tight zooms on faces, showing a lot of emotion. He's got a really great sense of point of view. Like, he can make you feel like you're in the bar with the detective or out freezing cold on the street.
So something that I appreciate is that with as many distinct characters there are in this book, because there's people in the bar, there's people that there's all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
And his style is not super duper detailed. It's kind of abstract in a way, or impressionist, where it's just it's
not slick.
Here's some lines.
Slick,
it's
right?
clearly a face, or it's clearly but all of the characters still look very distinct, even though he doesn't use a ton of lines to define them all.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes sense.
No, totally. I think that is his gift, right?
Right.
He can take what maybe any other artist could make a very boring police kind of mystery and infuse a lot of character into it. He's great. I love him. Sanction follows some familiar story beats for any police mystery, but Tobin and Fox have the formula down, and when the staples of the story show up, they're just familiar enough to keep the reader invested and feeling like a part of the mystery. Setting the story in Russia, nice touch. You got the ex-KGB everywhere. They're profiting off corruption and expecting favors. I have a feeling this case is going to be linked to some ex-KGB business.
You don't say.
Yeah. It adds a level of complication to the investigation that sets this apart from another cop investigating a girl's death. I am giving this a buy it. This was just a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, another winner for Mad Cave. I didn't expect anything out of it. But I ended up really enjoying it. I love a spy cop procedural kind of thriller. And this was exactly what I wanted it to be. The art is great. It's a buy it from me as well. Antonio Fuso, man.
Yeah, he's great.
That guy doesn't get a ton of high profile work, but he should, because he's great.
I like to think he chooses very wisely what he wants, maybe,
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Like a Daniel Day-Lewis, he's not going to pop up everywhere, but when he does, he's going to do something good,
You heard it here first. Antonio Fuso is the Daniel Day-Lewis of comics.
There it is.
Well, while we're in the G.I. Joe spy intrigue kind of mood, let's talk about Cobra Commander number 5. This is from Image Comics Skybound imprint, or, sub. I don't know what you call them, because they're not imprints. They're studios.
Yeah, it's your studio or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
Skybound, yeah.
I think you call it.
It's written by Joshua Williamson, with art by Andrea Milano. Colors are by Annalisa Leone. Letters are by Russ Wooten. That guy's getting around today.
Yeah.
It's 32 pages for $3.99. Here is your solicit. Short and sweet, and I appreciate that. Miniseries finale. Period.
Thank you, Image.
Thank you, Image.
Yeah, we got it.
The rise of Cobra Commander. To build an army, Cobra Commander makes a deal with a powerful ally that can't be trusted. I wonder who that could be. Now that it's started, can the Cobra threat ever be stopped? This issue sees the formation of Cobra and the partnership between Cobra Commander and Destro.
Did not see it coming at all.
You're right. Williamson presents a compelling reason why someone at the top of his game like Destro, who is this international arms dealer, he's very slick, he's got a huge amount of resources and an army, would go into business with his beaten up fugitive and his group of terrified misfits.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Williamson is doing here, it's got to be so difficult to reinvent something like G.I. Joe, because we all know G.I. Joe. You know what's going to happen.
Right.
You know that Cobra Commander is going to end up hooking up with Destro. Of course, they work together in Cobra. But here is a very simple reason built on this otherwise simple story.
On the shared universe.
That just works. It just totally works. It's great.
And, the idea that Destro was not part of Cobra is something that I always knew in the back of my mind growing up, but I didn't really understand it until I was older. It's like Destro is a weapons dealer.
He's a businessman.
That works with Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
But he's not a subordinate to Cobra Commander.
Like, we found out he sold stuff to people that armed G.I. Joe at one point.
Sure.
Like, he's...
And Man, I fucking love Destro, dude.
I know. He's great.
This series leaned hard into the Cobra Law stuff that was introduced in G.I. Joe, the movie, the cartoon from 1986 or whatever, which I don't really love.
I love it. I'm in.
I think that
I love it.
I think that there's a lot of like aging nerd episode 1 style rehabilitation going on with the Cobra Law stuff. I think people are I think people are growing up going, you know what? That was fun. But I definitely remember when we were younger and angrier, that Cobra Law stuff did not fly.
No way, dude. I always thought Globulus was cool. I always loved those characters.
Look, did I have the 3-pack of Globulus, the
Serpentor,
weird little
totally
viper dude,
ruled.
and
Get outta here.
Nemesis Enforcer? Yes, I did. Was I pissed off that Nemesis Enforcer's shitty little plastic wings looked like garbage? Yes, I was. But something that I really did like about how Williamson handled things is that we don't ever learn who Cobra Commander is. We know where he's from. We know what he was doing before he came out into the world. We know that he's an outcast from Cobra Law, but we don't know shit about his identity.
I think that's really goes back to a lot of this Cobra Law thing as well. He is from a society where that is not important. Your individuality is not that important. I
don't know if that's what they were going for, but
I think that's part of it. Yeah. Your job is to push our society back into the world. Go do it. You are a worker bee, ant, whatever. And he's very good at what he does, but his identity, not important. Doesn't matter.
I'll give you that. And, regarding the Cobra Law stuff, I get that it now exists alongside, giant transforming robots and pig-faced bounty hunters from outer space.
Sure.
But something about adding that extra sci-fi element. Yes, I know Serpentor, mass device. I get it. But adding that extra sci-fi element to G.I. Joe just never sat quite right with me. But they do a good job with it here. Milano's art is great. All of the classic characters that you love are instantly recognizable. Speaking of Antonio Fuso, this is sort of in that vein where it's kind of looser lines, not a lot of like actual detail rendering.
Right.
But it's like, oh yeah, that's Buzzer. That's Ripper. That's Blowtorch or Torch or whatever his name. Like the Dreadnoks were all like very immediately recognizable. He's equally skilled at depicting the advanced technology of Cybertron and the pulsating weirdness of Cobra Law.
Sure.
And I might be in the minority, but I loved Cobra Commander strutting around in that dumb wide-brimmed hat and that trench coat.
No, it was great. It's like,
who does this man think he is? And I'm kind of bummed that it's over because now he just looks like Cobra Commander. He's in the outfit.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with all of it because, like, look, if you're going to say the Cobra is as powerful as they are and they have these weapons and stuff like that, then it helps that there is something even more sinister and powerful here.
Oh, sure.
Because otherwise, how are they going to fight Decepticons, Joe?
We
were always joking about, like, who is funding Cobra? Who sat down like, oh, it's time for the Cobra stockholder meeting. Like, no.
I'll tell you who's funding Cobra. Cobra is funding Cobra because they have gotten their hands on Energon, and that has changed the game.
Right. And that's
changed the balance of power on Earth, and people just don't know it.
Given you that story, basically. Like, look, there are aliens in this world. They are Transformers. There's also forgotten races of people. They are Cobra Law. We are caught in the middle as humans. Fine. In the cartoons, yes, they absolutely sprung it on us, and it was bizarre. At least we have a reason.
They built Serpentor in a lab, so it was always coming. I don't know why that was okay with me, but not the Cobra Law stuff. But so I guess spoilers, but the connection to the Energon universe is that Cobra Law found, I'm not going to say exactly what, but Cobra Law found a source of Energon after the Transformers crashed on Earth however many millions of years ago. And they've been trying to study it ever since, and Cobra Commander cracked it. And that's how he becomes Cobra Commander. And it's great. The way that Kirkman and Williamson have folded these things together.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Simply, this is your model. This is your model. If you want to reinvent something and you want to do it in a shared universe, here's your model. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple.
They are differently shaped jigsaw pieces that fit perfectly together.
All they had to do is say, okay, well, how do the Transformers work? Well, they hate each other and they all need Energon. Okay, what's Energon? It's a badass thing that powers the Transformers.
It's gasoline.
Who would like
that?
I don't know. Terrorist organization, Cobra. They probably love it. Right. Bad guys would love it. Writes itself. You're done.
I mean, and like, look, he rolled up on Destro with his one stinky bearded dreadnought and a bunch of hillbillies.
Right.
And it was like, check this shit out. And Destro was like, sign me up.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Because he's a businessman. Makes sense.
Yep, he gets it. Cobra Commander number 5 ends the series with the formation of Cobra, as we all knew it probably would. Cobra Commander wasn't my favorite of the Energon Universe projects, but I am still really excited to see it all take shape. I'm giving this a buy it. I think is an important piece to the ongoing G.I. Joe Transformers puzzle.
Way more than Void Rivals, that's for sure. It's a buy.
I mean, look, I think Void Rivals is good. I agree that it's not especially tangent. It's not very firmly tied in.
I don't
always
get it yet. Like, why are we doing this? We don't. Need
look,
this.
if you want Energon Universe shit, read the most recent Void Rivals. There was a Transformer in it. He's on the cover.
Fair.
New comics for the week of Wednesday, May 29.
We begin this week, starting off with my pick for this week, William of Newbury, #1 from Dark Horse. It is written, drawn, colored, and lettered by Michael Avon Oeming. He did it all himself. 28 pages for $4.99. Here's your solicit. From the co-creator of the Eisner Award-winning best-selling Powers comes the brand new anthropomorphic supernatural series that's Hellboy meets Redwall. And boy, is it Hellboy. I saw Hellboy all over this comic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Loosely based on real events in 12th century England during what was known as the Anarchy, a time when the country was beset with plague, civil war, and demons. William of Newbury is a neurotic monk, fearful of the earthly world. He doesn't like spiders and bugs, but confident and unwavering in the face of true evil. He fights the dead to restore peace, but his brother is intent on stopping him. Fearful for his soul, Newbury is dark yet quaint, deadly yet cute. Follow him as he negotiates with thieves, evades his brother and the church, and battles the undead and evil spirits. This is a tale fit for lovers of history and supernatural folklore of all ages. So it does.
All of that is accurate.
Yeah. And going into this, I don't know what I thought I was going to get, but after reading the solicit, I was like, okay, I think I see Oeming working here. Because when you hear all ages, these days, all ages typically means young adults. And young adults typically means we're going to try and be hip and cool for the kids, right? No. Michael Avon Oeming, he still hits you with some pretty scary stuff. There's demons, there's ghosts, there's religious exorcism rites that would be right out of a BPRD or Hellboy story. This doesn't read like a modern all ages story to me. It's more like, it reminded me of like classic Jim Henson fantasy meets Stan Sagai, Usagi Yojimbo. Like Usagi, super cute. It's adorable. If you look at the pictures, it's so cute. But there's nothing cute about the stories. They're very serious samurai stories.
100% agreed.
Yeah. And the story here, it's simple. You got a traveling monk solving the ghost demon of the day issue. He befriends a thief who wants to learn to read. There's a great side story with the elder as Abby, who just does not approve of his missions at all. It's just really good fantasy meets history. The world is very recognizable as feudal Europe. The church kind of runs things, but there's ghosts and demons around and they're causing problems. Somebody's got to take care of it. Oeming is playing with his style a little bit here, and you can really see the Mignola influence. He's not aping Mignola, but he's definitely borrowing elements from the way Mignola tells a creepy story. The cave,
yes,
the way the lights come off of like graves when ghosts come out of them and stuff. Even the coloring reminded me of Hellboy a little. And that's not a bad thing. If you're gonna borrow from somebody, borrow from Mike Mignola. If you can
borrow
do
from
it.
the best.
Oeming comes out swinging, handling all of the creative duties on this impressive first issue. The story is listed as all ages, but it isn't just an adorable talking animal fantasy. William of Newbury is more in the vein of classic 80s fantasy films like Legend or Labyrinth that weren't adult in content, but they also didn't talk down to kids watching, and they posed some really scary threats for the main character. I love this world that Oeming is building here, and fans of Mignola's creepy classic fantasy are going to feel right at home. I'm giving this a buy it. It was so fun.
Yes, I liked this very, very much. And yeah, it's all ages, but it's still creepy and a little bit menacing, and the art is beautiful. I loved that all of the characters were animals, and some of the animals are just related and you don't have to worry about it. Like the rabbit and like William and the abbot are brothers, like actual brothers. And then when he meets a family later on, they mention, siblings and they're different species of animals, and it doesn't matter. That's how it is.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
And gosh, boy, did I love the art, and especially the colors. They're so vibrant, and there are these skeletons flying around, like saying hi to William for no reason. Like there's all kinds of fun little stuff.
Yeah.
In this comic. I loved it. It's a buy it from me. And now on to my pick of the week for today, May 29th. It's Grommets #1 from Image Comics. It's written by Rick Remender and Brian Posehn. Art by Brett Parson. Colors by Moreno Dionisio. Letters by Russ Wooten. That's a hat trick, baby.
There you go.
It's 32 pages for $3.99. Here's your solicit. Miniseries premiere. Period.
Right on, Image. Thanks.
Image. Two best friend outcasts navigate the Sacramento suburbs of 1984, where they find a home in skateboard culture and punk rock. On one side of the coin, Grommets is an authentic look at 80s skate culture, a snapshot of the generation that turned skating into a worldwide phenomenon. On the other, it's a heartfelt coming-of-age story that follows two friends from troubled homes as they navigate their damage in an era when no one cared. You might be wondering what a straight-laced young lad like Joe Patrick is doing reviewing a comic book about skater culture. Well, believe it or not, when I was in junior high, I was a big old poser.
I was going to say, are you going to try and tell us you're like, hey kids, I'm cool too.
Yeah, I'm like that. I was like that Steve Buscemi meme from 30 Rock. But I did have several friends who were skaters, and I loved listening to them talk about modifying their decks. And I loved borrowing their copies of Thrasher magazine. As a young nerd with no one around who shared my love of comics, I related to the counterculture aspect of skating, even if I lacked the balance to even stand up on a board. True story. I can't do it. Grommets #1, it took me right back to that time, and I got caught up in the dialogue about, like Howell Peralta and what kind of trucks they used on their boards. Aside from personal nostalgia, though, I thought that Remender and Posehn's story had a strong, Dazed and Confused vibe that I really enjoyed. Like, it's very much Richard Linklater, Dazed and Confused, coming of age, high school.
Definitely, but it's an 80s story.
But it's set in the 80s,
70s,
right? Right, yeah, exactly. Brett Parsons' art is excellent.
He's so good. He's got this Mad Magazine style to him almost, right?
Yeah, it's wonderfully expressive cartooning, clearly inspired by greats like Jack Davis.
Thank you. I couldn't say the name.
You can tell that Parson has a misspent youth reading Mad Magazine. It's apparent.
Yeah. There's some Evan Dorkin here too, though. I mean, definitely.
Sure, but Evan Dorkin also, he worships at the same altar.
100%.
Aging skaters, nerds, goths, stoners, or readers that came up in any group of outcast teens. You're going to find a lot to love about Grommets #1. I thought it was fantastic. This is a buy it from me.
Yeah. And I don't know why we were shocked when we read this lesson last week and you were like, this is what Rick Remender's doing. Rick's an older dude. He grew up like this. He was obviously.
No, that wasn't it. It was more like, I don't always love things that Brian Posehn has a hand in. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
That's not what I was talking about. I guess I was just talking about more when you see Brian Posehn is working with Jerry Duggan on whatever, it's going to be a funny superhero thing. When he's working with Rick Remender, we're going to be like, oh, it's going to be some crazy whacked out, takedown of a superhero. But no, it's exactly what you're getting. Skaters in the 80s being dorks, you know, riding their dumb skateboards, wearing Judas Priest t-shirts and shit. I mean, and the art's excellent. And it was like really nice, feel good summer comic. I'm giving this a buy.
Kind of. I mean, even despite the, you know, grievous bodily harm and
that's part of skateboarding.
I mean, right. It's yes, exactly. You know? And like, so yeah, I mean, I guess mild spoiler, a character in the book face plants it. But when you see that kid again, he's got a huge ass smile on his face, even though he just ground his face looks like hamburger.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the deal. I watch kids do this shit on half pipes all the time.
It's like a badge of honor.
But the lead up to it is great too. It's just like, you know, in typical comic fashion. I don't want to ruin it, but it's like, it starts at the dawn of time and then it ends with this kid smashing.
Oh, that scene was great. The execution of that was great. Of that moment was really excellent.
Huge buy it. I had a lot of fun with this.
Speaking of coming of age stories that we can all relate to, let's talk about your next book.
And now we return to our continuing coverage of the head-scratching Alien Books relaunch of Valiant, or, as we learned in this one, the road to the relaunch. Which
the road to resurgence.
Yeah.
The road to resurgence.
Pardon me.
We're still
the road to the resurge. My bad.
we're still surging.
This is Rye, Book of the Dark, #1 from Valiant. It's written by Dan Abnett, cover by Tony Wilsmer, art by Emilio Utera, colors by Ezekiel F. Roel and Mariano Morales, with letters by Marina Leon and Ezekiel Inverney. If you're going to buy one book created by two Ezekiels, this is your shot. Here you go. Here's your solicit. Hold on to your seats as Rye and Raijin face off against their ultimate nemesis, the sinister Darque, with a Q-U-E because, you know, evil. Brace yourselves as the storytelling maestro Dan Abnett, who worked on Nova and the Guardians of the Galaxy, returns triumphantly to conclude his epic run on Rye in this miniseries. Okay, so that's important. Now, here's something you may not know. Dan Abnett has not worked on a Rye book since 2020. So if you did not...
Nor has there been one.
Nor has there been one. So if you did not read that last Rye book and perhaps revisit it, it's been every bit of 4 damn years since his run ended. Or stopped, anyway. That is not his fault. That is not the character's fault. That's not any of these creators' fault. But they need to just restart the Valiant U. Just restart it, okay? This gentle relaunch, resurge, whatever we're doing, it's not working. It is not fair to the fans. It is not fair to the creators. And here we are, yet again, with this bizarre book that has this weird character info dump in the beginning that doesn't prepare you for anything, and then you're immediately launched into something weird is going on, and all will be revealed in a little bit here. But even when all is revealed, you're still gonna go, what is happening in this comic?
Dude, I got to the title page.
Yeah.
And I saw all of the words describing all of the characters and the AI this and nano that. And I'm like, my entire brain glossed over.
Yeah.
And I think I forgot certain things from my childhood.
I'm gonna read one of them, just one of them, because reading all of them is way too much.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you about Fusion. He rules the Positronic Kingdom based in the city of New Ur. He desires to make a safe place for the Positronics. With no room for humans, he keeps 2 fragments of offspring inside himself, the only being capable of taming them safely. What?
I don't.
What?
I don't,
is that supposed to teach me something about fusion? Not to mention, look, the pacing just isn't great here either. It takes too long to get to the twist, and there's just too much weird dialogue that's letting you know that something is off. But when the twist is revealed, we're supposed to learn what's actually happening, and instead, it's just Kid Rye resetting the story very briefly But I can't say I know much other than Rai is half robot. Kid Rai is all robot. Another character may or may not have 2 robot babies inside of him. And they need to fight this Darque character, but they also need to fight someone named Bloodfather. Okay.
Bloodfather. Bloodfather.
Right. Not to mention the art. It's not bad, but stylistically, it's a strange choice. Like, this kind of looks like an updated Archie book, not an action-packed cyber ninja book. You know, it like the style just didn't work for me at all. It was almost cute in some panels, and I don't get it. This Alien Books Valiant relaunch needs to either commit to relaunching the universe or at least give readers some better background, maybe even an apology that it took so long to finish this story, but here it finally is. Rai Book of the Darque comes off as a head-scratching story from a writer that I really like, with art that just didn't work. By the end, the only thing I'm taking away from this story is I don't care to read anymore. I'm giving this a leave it.
Yeah. I mean, this comic did nothing for me. Let me back up. I actually did get a little bit of enjoyment out of the creepiness and the growing sense of something's not right here with the family scenes. Like, I thought that was handled kind of okay. And then there's a twist, and you realize, oh, this isn't what Rai's life is supposed to be like, yada, yada, yada. But yeah. And then the villain, this is going back to the art, but the villain morphs into the villain, this monstrous villain form. And and the monster's got like one huge gross tit.
Of course you like that part. Of course you got.
That's not what I'm liking.
We know, Joe. Don't worry, we know.
What is going on? What's happening?
Like, there's no payoff. Like, maybe if you had been reading back in 2020, this Darque character was a thing, but like, this is billed as Rai Book of the Darque #1. And I'm like, all right, maybe I'll check Rai out. I've always been interested. There's no payoff to like, oh shit, Darque with a QUE is here, and she's a monster, and she brainwashed us, and the robot babies are not free, and there's bloodhounds in the woods, and we gotta
Bloodfather
go fight Blood Daddy, and like, what are we doing? You know,
Blood Daddy,
Kid Rai, Blood Daddy,
Darque,
and I don't know.
Yeah, Darque or Master Darque is a name that is going to be familiar to old school Valiant fans, and I get why his name has kind of this cachet, and why when he shows up, it's a big deal. But you wouldn't really get, like, nothing in this book made me go, boy, am I excited to read more about Master Darque's evil master plan.
No, and it's just not fair. It's not fair.
I almost stopped reading this comic halfway through. Like, I almost quit on it. I just was like, I can't. But I soldiered through because, damn it, we have a job to do.
This is the same problem we had with that Bloodshot book. Again.
Oh, well, no, I actually comprehended the events of this book.
Well, sure.
I just didn't understand anything that was happening.
Right.
There's no context for anything.
That's just it. Like, you can't just, they can't do it this way. They're doing it wrong.
I don't know. And it's like the Road to Resurgence. There's a checklist in the back as though like we're going to collect all the Road to Resurgence books. And it started back in March. And there's like 30 goddamn books on this thing. And it's like,
are they all just like, oh, we got to
Valiant puts out maybe 2 comics a month. How are we going to get this many books out?
This is all stuff. My only guess is this is all stuff that they should have been putting out since 2020 that they weren't.
Maybe.
When we were like, is Valiant even an imprint anymore?
Is Valiant dead?
Right. If you want to do that, put out a trade paperback, the final trade paperback. Plus,
just do them as graphic novels.
3 issues that were never printed. Now you gotta buy the trade, and it'll make fucking sense. You know,
like you look at the checklist. You look at the checklist, and the last thing on the checklist is the Resurgence of the Valiant Universe #1. It's like, I'm not waiting that long. No, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm out.
You can't trick me into reading all of this stuff if it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna finish the mess that we got in financially. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's not fair to anything. It's not fair to these characters, the creators, the fans. It's just not fair.
Yeah, it's just like, wake me up when we're done traveling down the road.
Yeah,
wake me up when the Resurgence actually happens, and I'll take a look. And then when these books relaunch with the major characters again, Yeah, we'll do what we have to do. But right now, it says I think I have negative interest.
Yeah. This just looks like a good way to piss your Valiant fans off before you relaunch.
It makes me mad.
The whole series. I don't get it.
It makes me mad about what's happening. Because these characters deserve better. Their pedigree is better than this.
I agree.
Well, I'd like to say that we're going to end things on an up note after that, but
there's just no way to introduce this.
I'd be lying if I said that. It's Wolverine number 50 from Marvel Comics. It's written by Benjamin Percy, Victor LaValle, and Larry Hama. Art is by Jeff Shaw, Corey Smith, Daniel Picciotto, and Javi Fernandez. Colors are by Various. Letters, the whole damn thing, is lettered by VC's Corey Pettit. Good on you, Corey. It's 64 pages for $7.99. Somebody check on Corey. Is he okay after all this? Doubt. Here's your solicit.
Somebody check on Ben Percy.
Yeah.
I assume he just bottles all over his house and he's just drunk as a skunk.
And then he
hasn't showered in a month, And
then they cut his head off and put it in a box that
Ben,
talks.
just trying to get fired.
Settle down, Ben. Here's your solicit. Creed versus Logan, the final showdown. It's all come down to this. The final battle between Wolverine and Sabretooth. The Sabretooth War concludes in the way it began. A violent, bloody battle. But who will be left standing? Plus, a special short story celebrating 50 issues of this run and 50 years of Wolverine from legendary Logan scribes, including Larry Hama, as well as a final send-off from Benjamin Percy and Javi Fernandez, and some special surprises. There was only one backup story by a legendary creator.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not wrong about that.
I think so. I only read one, and
I'm not sure what surprises they're talking about. I guess there was a preview of the new Wolverine number 1, which it looks
surprise.
Art looks good. Art looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Like a merciful adamantium claw to the brain, the Sabretooth War has finally come to an end with this issue.
8
The
issues.
Storyline as a whole is probably 5 issues longer than it needed to be.
Oh, yeah. 8 issues of this shit.
10 issues.
Oh, was it 10 total?
Part 10.
Oh,
yeah.
God, you're right. This is part 10.
41 through 50.
Last night, I read 8 issues.
You read 8 issues. Yeah, right, exactly. And I did the same thing a couple of days ago. And it changed me on a fundamental level. And it was probably stretched out for the gross out factor of the extreme violence. The idea of Sabretooth recruiting a team of multiversal variant stooges seems so antithetical to the character that it is impossible to take any of it seriously.
I think that's the biggest problem. It's like the best thing about Sabretooth versus Wolverine is we know once a year we're going to get an issue where Sabretooth and Wolverine get in the ring and
it's simple.
Look it out, man. And
it's simple and
ugly,
it's gritty and
it's going to be violent. And it's the same thing in wrestling. When you have us frothing at the mouth for 2 guys to get in there and let's figure out who the champ is. You know what you don't do? You don't have the champ show up with 30 guys for his match. That would really take away from the bravado.
Every time one of the saber teeth, and that is what they call them, shows up dressed like Captain America or covered in bird feathers or whatever the fuck, or as a woman with mutton chops, I was just like, oh, what the hell is happening? Now, I did appreciate how Percy and LaValle made an effort to show how different Wolverine and Sabretooth really are, despite how similar they may seem. Wolverine doesn't take joy in killing. He's haunted by the things he's done. Sabretooth, on the other hand, revels in all of that.
So, yes, we know Sabretooth is a psychopath. I get that. This is Sabretooth amped up to a level of psychopath so far that it goes past psychopath to just completely ridiculous. To no one is this psychotic, and you're not selling it either. It's too much. Everything about this story was so amped up that the stakes just melted away into fucking nonsense. Just nonsense.
Yes, I agree with that. I also like the little team of exiles. And now this is more about the storyline as a whole than this specific issue, but there's a group that spun out of the 2 Sabretooth minis that Victor Laval wrote. And they're calling themselves the Exiles. And these are characters that were also thrown into the pit with Sabretooth.
Right.
But they promised mutants another path. You know, it's not just Xavier in lockstep or Magneto in lockstep or whatever. There's a better way. There's another way. And it is a shame we'll probably never see more of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, another issue here is that there's so many things that we already know are being undone. So certain events, character deaths, have no weight at all.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the 2 backup stories written by Percy and the legendary Larry Hama. Percy's was a nice reflection on Logan's character.
Oh, there are 2 stories. You had just said there was only one. What are you talking about? But
no. There was
Larry Hama was.
There was one.
Okay.
There was one legendary creator backup story, and then the send off by Ben Percy.
No, I thought both those were really solid, and like it kind of washed a bad taste out of my mouth, honestly.
Little bit. Hama's was like a fun throwback to a more innocent time where people weren't getting chopped into tiny little parts and being used to spell out words. There's a side note here, an intriguing plot development involving one of this story's main plot points in this week's Wolverine #1. I mean, for what it's worth, Wolverine #1, not bad.
Better than this comic.
Yeah, definitely better than this comic. The art throughout is excellent, depending on your tolerance for ultra violence.
Is it? I thought both these artists are really good, but there's some panels that I just thought looked kind of silly. Not to mention, we can't decide how tall Sabretooth is. Is he 9 feet tall? Is he 15 feet tall? Is he 25 feet tall?
He's as many feet tall as he needs to be,
There
baby.
are scenes where he is larger than the Hulk. And I get you're trying to do a thing and impress, like Wolverine is short and he's big. Great. But come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Look, I thought the art was fine, but Wolverine's adamantium armor still looks ridiculous. Whether you like the art or not, the armor is dumb. Oh, also, the armor has a built-in function that conveniently heals Wolverine's power loss.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
I know. Like, come on.
Like, again, removing all stakes.
Right. Again, totally. This is like, Superman is here to save us, but it looks like he's going to need the super tank for this job. Like, wait,
sure.
Why?
Superman has to fight a villain made of kryptonite.
Right.
Uh-oh, what's going to happen? Magic has made Superman immune to kryptonite. I mean, it's like, no. What? Like, you've taken all the wind out of it. Whether you loved it or hated it, Wolverine #50 is the end of an era, including spin-offs, mini events, etc. The comic book based on the podcast. Percy wrote about 130 issues featuring the old Knucklehead.
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody needs to check on the guy. Oh, and that's not counting X-Force. 50 issues of X-Force.
True.
Sabretooth War was overly long, gratuitously violent, and relentlessly silly. I didn't love it, but I certainly did have some fun with it sometimes. So I'm giving this issue a low skim it. It's not a recommendation. I'm not recommending it.
I got to give this a leave it. I just think this is such a bloated, silly, just piece of crap. And
I think
and Percy has done such a great job on this run. I've really liked a lot of what Ben Percy did. And this just felt like, fuck it, man. Let's blow everything up. Screw it. Let's just do it. Let's just blow it. And there's gonna be guts everywhere. Body parts.
And you know what? I think
like,
if he had leaned farther in the like, this is balls to the wall, buck wild, crazy lunacy.
Right. But we didn't
instead
even do
of
that.
trying to have some of that and then also be very, very serious.
Right. It's like they couldn't make
it would have been different.
They couldn't make up their mind. It's also overshadowed by the fact that this is all ending in 99%.
We all know it doesn't matter.
Is
None
going
of it
away,
matters.
and it doesn't matter. So that doesn't.
We've known that Wolverine is getting a new comic for so long,
right?
That we thought the wrong guy was drawing the Wolverine comic.
Yeah.
It's actually a second Wolverine comic, and so it's like none of this mattered, none of it at all.
And it just came off as like stupid, extreme violence, macho silliness. And I know it's easy to say, well, Matt, you're reading a Wolverine comic. I agree. But sometimes a little self-control, just a little bit, dialing it back just a little, makes for a better story.
Tone matters.
Yeah.
Picking a tone.
And sticking with it.
Right. And like you can't be like 8 issues in is when Wolverine lost his powers.
Yeah.
8 issues in. And then in 1 issue it's resolved. It's like, why? Why? He was under no threat whatsoever.
No. And it just, I don't know. This just didn't work. And I really like Sabretooth.
I'm barely giving it a skim it just because.
I really like Wolverine. I love when Wolverine fights Sabretooth, but it's like you took everything that I liked about that and turned it into this multiversal bullshit bloodbath. Come on.
You know what? I'm changing my rating. I'm giving it a leave it.
It's a leave it.
You'd be better suited just skipping the last story arc of Wolverine and jumping in with the real one.
Absolutely.
Yep. You can find links in our show notes for more details on these comics. And of course, we are talking about them on our Discord. But now it's time to pick the comic that shred us into the most quivering bloody pieces out of this pile to add to the THN permanent collection. Matt, I think I know where you stand.
I think my pick is William of Newbury. I think
I agree.
I have Michael Avon Oeming, man. Like that dude, it's just like, look, he did everything in that goddamn book. This is not a double threat thing. He's not just writing and drawing. He's doing everything. And we don't see creators that do that a lot anymore. Stan Sakai, one of them, right? And I think he very much modeled it after Stan Sakai. Great dude to model.
You know what? Actually, I'm sorry.
He did the most work of the week.
Edit that out.
And he came out with like the best idea of the week. I love it.
I'm going to do what we did last week, and I'm going to split the vote. Our last New Comics podcast.
We don't have to agree. We can always.
No, I know. I did really like William of Newbury, but I do want to say White Boat #1 was probably the best comic I read from.
It's pretty damn outstanding. I
liked it very, very much.
Yeah. It's time to head up to the THN Sanctum Sanctorum to make our must-read picks for next New Comic Day, June 5th. And here is a little sneak preview of what you could be picking up from your local comic shop. You demanded it, and American Mythology Comics heard the call. Get ready for Al Capone, Vampire #1. Alex Packnadel and Tori Little adapt the cutest Lovecraftian horror video game to comics in Cult of the Lamb #1. If you have not seen this, it is
I've seen clips of the game. Yeah, it's something else.
Just in time for his bout with Logan Paul, the famed Mike Tyson #1 comic tells Tyson's story in comic format for the low price of $29.99.
Whoa.
It is a Fan Expo Dallas exclusive thing. You can spend up to $70 on one of the variants if you would like. It is a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out variant, but he's got a brown, he's got like a gray beard because he's old now. You know, it's fun.
Right, yeah. I get it.
Peter Bagg returns to his infamous Hate comic with Hate Revisited from Fantagraphics for 4-issue mini. I am
that's good.
Super excited. And it wouldn't be New Comic Book Day for Joe Patrick if he didn't have to buy all 30 variants of Vampirella Dark Reflections #1. Joey.
Oh my God.
I guess you'll suspend your boyish fear of horror for that sexy vamp bod. What is your pick for next week? Pervert.
Oh, that's my secret, Matt, is that I might be a horror baby, but I am a sucker for sexy horror.
Oh, okay.
Erotic horror.
Oh, see, I thought you were just saying you just read Vampirella for the horror.
No.
Joke's on you.
Yeah. My pick for next week is X-Men 35.
Really? After we just had this talk about Wolverine.
Look, how many times do we have to have the conversation that sometimes it's not excitement, sometimes it's curiosity?
Okay.
It's X-Men 35 from Marvel. It's written by Jerry Duggan and Various with art by Phil Noto and Various. It is a mind-bogglingly large 88 pages for $9.99. Here's your solicit. And look, this is Marvel math gone too far.
Right.
The end of an era. Uncanny X-Men 700.
No, it's not.
It isn't.
Yeah.
You cannot refuse to put out a comic book called Uncanny X-Men for 5 years.
Bullshit.
And then include these numbers in your numbering. No.
Shit. What you do is you wait until you relaunch Uncanny X-Men and start with issue 700 if you want to or something. But
Or something.
doing it here in a book that's not going to matter, that's going away, that has limped to an end. This is my 700th issue spectacular.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marvel.
Boo. Boo on you, Marvel.
By the way,
that.
it's Joe Patrick's pick of the week, folks. So there you go.
Look, again, for those of you new to our podcast, sometimes our pick of the week is things that we're curious to see how they play out, not necessarily the comic book we're most excited to read. Matt knows this, and yet every time I pull this, he gives me a hard time.
I pick stuff that I think is going to be good. That's all I'm saying.
And I pick things that I think are going to be worth reading
Joe
for
Patrick
some reason or another.
likes to show up to the car crash sometimes just to
Whether
see the
it's
dead
a
guy.
good reason or not.
Is that the dead guy? Oh, God.
Here's the rest of the solicit. All good things must come to an end, and as good of a thing as the Krakoan era has been for mutant kind, its time has come at last. The tragedy and triumph of fall of the House of X, the madness and mystery of rise of the powers of X. 2 comic books, by the way, that I read side by side, and I could not tell you what the fuck happened. They have all come to their end and led us to this moment that will change the future of mutant kind for years to come. Written and drawn by an all-star cast of writers and artists who have shaped the Krakoan age. This is one milestone no X-fan will want to miss. Also featuring a story of family by X-Men Master Chris Claremont and a glimpse of things to come. Now, Matt,
Barf.
written and drawn
Barf.
by an all-star cast of writers and artists who have shaped the Krakoan age. Who do you suppose is not going to be included in this?
Yeah, well, do you think Jonathan Hickman is going to show up for this one? I mean, they didn't.
No, I do not.
No, that's just
I
it.
do
I can't
not.
believe you're picking this. This is such a
I wanna see what
cop-out
they do.
ending. They're not going to do anything, Joe. They're not going to do anything.
I want to see how they put the genie back in the bottle.
They're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. They're quietly going to limp off the island and be like, well, I guess it's time to move to
we have been
New
having
York
debates about this.
and Louisiana.
We have been having debates about this on the Discord and in Cover to Cover for months. Is resurrection still going to be possible? What's going to happen to all the mutants that are dead?
Resurrection's already screwed. Wolverine talks about how Resurrection's done.
Oh, but Quentin Quire, whose head is currently in a box.
Oh, God.
Is front and center on Cyclops' team of X-Men. So don't give me that shit. I want to see what they do.
Fine. My pick for next week is Scarlet #1 from Image, Skybound, a good comic book written by Kelly Thompson with art by Marco Ferrari. I love that dude's last name. 32 pages. It's $4.99. Marco sounds like he should be working for F1. Here's your solicit. Shauna, Scarlett O'Hara, is about to take... I didn't know her first name was Shauna.
Yeah.
I had no idea. All right. Is about to take on the most dangerous Black Ops mission of her career, infiltrating the mysterious rising power in Japan known as the Arashikage clan.
Arashikage.
You know who lives there. Her one lead.
I mean, yeah. Storm Shadow.
Well, yeah. And
Snake Eyes.
I was going to say, and somebody else too. Her one lead is her former partner, Jinx, turned.
Oh, and also Jinx.
Yes. Turned Arashikage enforcer. Now, Scarlet must use her operative skills to survive undercover and discover a shocking weapon that could change the balance of power on Earth.
The mass device.
Here's what I love about this.
The mass device.
The one thing that every G.I. Joe nerd is salivating for is Snake Eyes. And if Marvel was doing this, every one of these miniseries would be called Snake Eyes, Scarlet. Right?
The road to Snake Eyes. Right.
Yes. Instead, we're going to meet Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, the 2 biggest fucking badasses in G.I.
We don't
Joe.
even know if that's true.
Oh, there's no way they're doing it. They're not doing it here.
It's probably true.
There's no way they're not doing it here. And this is the way you do it. I love this. And I love Scarlet. And I love Kelly Thompson. And this art looks kick-ass. I'm excited.
Hey, you know what? Don't quote me on this, or maybe do, but I think when this book was first announced and they gave us the solicit, it said her one lead is her former partner turned Arashikage enforcer, and it did not say Jinx. I think that at that time, I assumed like, oh, her former partner is Snake Eyes.
Maybe. Oh,
So I think that it's a swerve, but I'm very excited for this, Matt. I'm very excited. Full disclosure, we got an advanced copy from Skybound. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Scarlet #1. Spoilers. It's excellent. The THN trade of the week is Grimm. It's a deluxe edition hardcover. It's volume 1 from Boom Studios. Did you know that they're still making Grimm?
Yeah.
A new issue just came out.
Didn't we already pick this once?
No, we did the Grimm black and white. Remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the deluxe edition hardcover, volume 1 from Boom Studios. It's written by Stephanie Phillips with art by Flaviano. It's 384 pages for $49.99. Here's your solicit. A deluxe hardcover of the best-selling series that introduced fans to an afterworld of Reapers. Jessica Harrow is dead, but her story begins as she experiences countless dark adventures in the hereafter, working as one of many Reapers, ferrying souls of the damned. As one of 2022's biggest hits with over 100,000 units sold, discover the secrets of the afterlife and the fate of hell and death itself in this premium format. From superstar writer Stephanie Phillips, you may recognize her from Harley Quinn and other books we've reviewed on the show, and fan favorite artist Flaviano, who worked on New Mutants, comes this harrowing collection, perfect for new and current readers alike. This collects the whole damn shebang currently out there right now, 1 through 15. Grimm's
outstanding. And after we read that black and white one,
we read that Grimm.
I caught up.
We had completely ignored Grimm. Like we never touched on Grimm.
Yeah, I knew it was great because people. It's like I picked between this or Something Is Killing the Children. I think because they both came out around the same time. And
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I don't know why because this is great.
We did that. Well, because we were like, oh, James Tynion IV. We're like, that's that's got to be our pick. That's got to be our guy. We did that Grimm Ink and Blood or whatever it was called. It was the black and white reprint of #1 that came out a couple of months ago.
Stunning.
It was so good. It was so freaking good. And in color, it looks even better.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for this.
Flaviano
this
is a monster of an artist.
He's so good.
Damn, he's good. I'm sure you nerds are excited to read crappy X-Men comics next week too, but what else are you reading? Let us know at our Discord, and be sure to put these comics on your pull list if you want to read along with us.
Before we black bag this episode and file it in the pervert, adult section of our back issues.
We're not judging, okay?
It's time for a sneak peek at our Patreon Extra. You'll get access to amazing, high quality, and even life-changing content just like this when you support THN for as little as $1 per month. Though I must say, more than $1 per month is always welcome.
Greetings, patrons, or as I like to call you, our favorite fans, because you support THN, unlike the freeloaders. We save the quality content for you guys, because you deserve it. Today, on your Patreon Extra, we're going to return to our ludicrous speed round of yore. Some of you may remember it. We used to play some really fast power metal and review 8 comics super fast, little bite-sized ludicrous speed reviews. It was fun. We are forced to return to this format because Blood Hunt has so many tie-ins. It would be a 6.5 hour review show if we tried it.
There are so many tie-ins. In fact, I think that they added one, and that's why we're actually missing one.
That could be. I don't know how that math adds up, but
we're only doing the mini series, right? Not the one shots. We're doing the mini series.
Yeah.
And I counted. There's 8. There's 8. Well, there's 7, and then the free comic book day one shot.
Okay.
And then I saw there is an 8th one not launching until June.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, we're just covering all the ones that hit in May. Who knows?
All the May ones.
Maybe by
Forget
June,
the June ones.
We'll have 8 more to talk about. I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, maybe we'll do this again at the end of next month.
But right now, Marvel's big summer event, Blood Hunt, is upon us. And while it's plunged the Marvel U into darkness, it's also unleashed a torrent of miniseries and one-shots on the new comic shelves. Today, we only have time to talk about miniseries. So now, join Joe and I as we don our bloodproof slickers and neck protectors for a Blood Hunt tie-in ludicrous speed round!
Speed! Go!
Free Comic Book Day, Blood Hunt, / pardon me. Blood Hunt / X-Men #1.
The Blood Hunt begins in this Free Comic Book Day prelude by event writer Jed McKay and artist Sarah Pacelli. We get to see the beginning of the vampire crisis through the eyes of characters that haven't really been the focus, like Peter Parker, the FF, and Daredevil. This is a great setup for the event that could have easily been part of an extended first chapter. Plus, there is a preview of the upcoming relaunch of Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone and David Marquez, and it is fantastic.
Neato.
This was a freebie, so it shouldn't be too hard to find, either in print or digital. Not a must-read, but definitely recommended. Buy it. Dracula Blood Hunt #1.
Dracula's in the title and featured on the Kick-Ass Rod Rice cover, but this is really more of a Bloodline, Daughter of Blade, Dracula team-up. Vincenzo Corratu keeps the internal art looking slick as hell with some excellent vamp-killing action. This was actually my first exposure to Bloodline. I never read anything with her before, and I like her.
Mine too.
I gotta say, she seems a little normal and well-adjusted for Blade's daughter, right?
She was raised by her mom away from Blade's and
Okay. Writer Danny Lore...
Mostly away from
Mostly. Writer Danny Lore handles her well, and who doesn't want to read about Dracula making a face turn to stop the vampire apocalypse? No spoilers here, but Bloodline obviously doesn't know who is behind the big vamp attack yet. So this team up is probably going to be a very big part of the story. I'm giving it a buy it.
Don't worry, there's going to be big spoilers later because it's impossible to
Some of this stuff come on.
There was a 5-issue Bloodline miniseries that I'm going to check out because I really enjoyed this, and I think the character is neat.
She seems
cool. It's a buy it for me as well.
I dig her. Blood Hunters, #1.
Don't let the Greg Land cover fool you, because it's terrible. Every event, Marvel has to have some anthology title running for some reason or another. Sometimes it's to show the event's impact on civilian life, like the earliest frontline tie-ins. Sometimes, like Blood Hunters, it's to focus on characters that aren't featured in the main story. This issue comes hard with the creators, featuring heavy hitters like Mark Russell, Bob Quinn, Javier Garrón, and Bernard Chang. But the tone is all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
The first 2 stories by Russell and Quinn and Christos Gage and Garrón are straight-up comedies. The last one by Erica Schultz and Bernard Chang is deadly serious. But, hey, that's what you get with anthologies. This isn't at all essential reading, and future issues may not be as good, but Blood Hunters #1 is fun. The first, it's Hawkeye in one story, Man-Wolf and J. Jonah Jameson in the second story, and I completely forgot who was in the third story. I liked it a lot. It's a buy it.
I'm giving this a skim it. I think it's just because, fun, not bad, but also completely off tone for everything else that's happening with Blood Hunt right now. And like you said,
it's a nice release. You let off the
I guess
the pressure valve a little bit.
Sure, but I don't feel like I need to buy this. It's cute at best. It's fine. I don't know.
Excelsior!
That is it for THN 744. If you dig our new comic reviews, you can check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe to each of our shows separately. We got a back issue show. We got a gang hang. And if you download the show on Apple Podcasts or whatever, thank you. But hey, do us a favor. Click on the YouTube thing because I found out the way that you get into other people's suggestions is by popping up in people's watch lists and good SEO. That's how they defeated everybody that was gaming the system. So do us a favor. Watch a couple of these. Huh? It helps.
Oh, and anywhere that allows you to give us a star rating or a review.
Please.
We don't often mention that.
Yeah.
It helps us a lot, more than you know.
It really does.
We don't want to bore you with a bunch of SEO talk, but
yeah,
the more people talk about the show, the more people see the show or hear the show, and the better it is for everybody.
It's true. Speaking of the show, next week, I'm out of town, so no show. But after that, we'll be back with new comic reviews, all right? So you will still get to hear about these picks. If you need more THN, in the meantime, join us for the THN Gang Hang. We do it on Saturdays at 11 o'clock Central. Check out our Discord for details. What else can the listeners do at our Discord, Joe?
Well, I think it is your imperative to try to talk Brian Domingos out of collecting graded comics. The dude's on eBay.
There's nothing I can do, Joe.
Adding a bunch of CGC shit to its watch list.
I'm not going to tell anybody how to do that.
Brian, don't do it.
It's a dark road you're traveling
It is
down,
a
Brian.
dark road. You can also talk Keith Binder off the ledge after the live-action Tom Bombadil reveal out of nowhere today. You can get all hot and bothered about Marvel swimsuit specials from the 90s thanks to that pervert Mark Stern. Or maybe you just want to answer the question of the week. This week's question came from Joe Reynolds. What are your favorite foreign comic book flicks? Now, look, we understand that not everybody listening is an American, but you know what we mean. Things that are outside the American studio system, outside the MCU, outside the DC.
Non-Hollywood.
Yeah. Please keep your question of the week suggestions coming. You can sign up for our Discord with the link at twoheadednerd.com/Discord. We have a no jerks allowed policy, but once you're allowed in, you can post about any of our segments. Or if you don't dig on the Discord, you can send an MP3 submission for the Comic Pushers, for Ask a Nerd, or for any segment to twoheadednerd@gmail.com, and we will put you on the show.
If you're new to the show and you'd rather read the entire road to Valiant Resurgence than listen to any more, I assure you it is only because you haven't heard enough. The good news
Choose a different punishment, please.
You know what? We're mad at those dudes. No. Put me back on your review list, and yes, we'll talk. All right?
Answer a goddamn email.
No shit. What is going on? The good news is you can hear the entire run of THN in our digital longbox archive at twoheadednerd.com. THN is a listener-supported podcast. It would not be possible without the generosity of donors like our patron, John Andrews. I don't know John Andrews. Is he new?
Dude's been around for an age.
All right. If you like what you hear every week, it is easy to support the show, just like the unmemorable John Andrews. You can sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/twoheadednerd. I'm not saying it's his fault. His parents are uncreative. If you name your kid Xavier Andrews, or you name your kid Williford Andrews.
Like our patron, Zanzibar Andrews.
Exactly. Hey, my parents named me Matt. I get it. It sucks. Not our fault, John.
Before we go, our weekly shout out goes to the summer blockbuster. R.I.P.
Ugh.
Last weekend's Memorial Day box office was the lowest ever and could not be saved by George Miller's follow-up to Mad Max Fury Road. Despite stellar reviews, Furiosa grossed only $64 million out of the expected $125 million. Yikes,
and
Rooney.
It's so good. This movie is
barely half.
incredible, you fucking jerks. Like, what do you want, people?
Word to you, corporate movie theater giants, it's all over but the crying now, and your days of selling candy and soda marked up by 1,000% might be over.
Good riddance. You know, here's the thing we need to remember. This is not the death of the theater. There's plenty of cool theaters out there that are going to be fine. This is the death of giant mega theater that just wants to squeeze every dollar they fucking can out of you. You know, like, screw you guys.
I mean, but much
Figure
like
it
the
out.
comic shop back in the 90s, that's a lot of them.
I don't disagree.
Hey, only Deadpool and Wolverine can save you now.
What happens if Deadpool and Wolverine makes $30? You know,
Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be
I'm
a
just saying,
phenomenon.
if it doesn't make
right now.
$500 million, there's like theater giants are going to kill them.
Oh, no. Deadpool and Wolverine is going to make cuckoo bucks.
Until next time, true believers, remember to pre-order your comics. Or your retailer might just tell all your friends that you thought the adamantium armor was cool. This is the Two-Headed Nerd. Signing off. It was
He wouldn't dare.
not cool.
It was not cool.